Hello, everyone, and welcome to this version of Jedi Talk. I'm Brad, the full council's here, and holy shit, do we have a show for you guys today. Evan, let's go ahead and get into it. He's the man to my right, the man with the ledge, Evan Tubuchet. Evan, what's going on, brother?
Hello there. We have a member from the High Jedi Council among us today. It was
How'd you know I was
great
high?
episode. Well, I should keep that for Tom's intro
You're
forever.
here, so that's how
but-
we know.
Yes,
Correct.
and to my right is the man that apparently is a member of the High Jedi Council, Mr. Tom Oakery.
Huh? Oh, I'm kidding. By the right of the council, by the will of the Force. Happy Star Wars Podcast Day, first and
Yes.
foremost.
Star Wars podcast.
February 7th, 1999, the first ever Star Wars podcast just happened to be named Jedi Talk. And now we're Jedi Talk.
Which is
Now
weird.
we're
And
Jedi Talk.
In the following interview you're going to hear how the story came about from his version of Jedi Talk, how our version came out about Jedi Talk. We just wrapped this
How
interview
awesome
up.
he is. You're going to hear like, oh.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite moments from the show. I feel like it kind of came full circle.
A little, yeah. Like there was so much great information he gave us. Like,
Yeah.
guys, we cannot wait to get him back on the show.
Yes, he's going
to come back.
He's going to come back. And so so when we found out that we were going to be doing Star Wars Podcast Today, I remembered that I had actually had an interaction with him on YouTube and through email, and we kind of like not stayed in touch, but like he knew who we were, and you'll hear the story of that on the episode. But I thought for Star Wars Podcast Day, since we're celebrating the first Star Wars Podcast Jedi Talk in 1999 on February 7th, how cool it would be to, since we're the only podcast that can do this, get him on the show, and we fucking did it, and it's amazing. Please listen to the interview. Let us know what you think. Follow us on Instagram at Jedi Talk Podcast, and in the link description of this episode are going to be the links for all of his stuff. So make sure you go do and support him and do all that stuff, because he is a true pioneer in podcasting, but specifically in Star Wars podcasting.
A wealth of knowledge. All of that, man.
Great guy, was so much fun to talk to, and he'll be back for sure.
Such a great interview too for how special today is.
Yes.
So happy 24th Star Wars Podcast Day.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Here's the interview. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay safe. May the Force be with you.
Always good journey into Buite.
Rise, Jedi Knight. What?
I thought you were gonna say
Light side, dark side.
side.
Join us Sunday night.
Yeah.
We're gonna work on that one.
Work on that again.
You guys will
You'll
know.
hear about that
Yeah.
in just a few minutes.
Pal
Love
sucks.
it. Thanks, guys, for listening. All right, guys. This is what we've been teasing on the earlier part of this episode, and we are joined today by the original host of the original Jedi Talk, Lucien Maier. What is going on, sir?
Not much. I'm surprised you found me.
We have some sleuthing skills, my friend. No. So I've told the story earlier on the podcast, but I want to say it again here so you can hear, because I know we've talked about it a little bit back and forth on email throughout the years when you first found the show Jedi Talk that we do, Jedi Talk, a Star Wars story. A
Star Wars
Star Wars
podcast.
story. Jesus Christ, a Star Wars
Disney
story.
has
come
gotten
on.
to you.
They've definitely got you.
So the long story short here is I was doing a Disney podcast called the Daily Disney Blog Podcast, and it was around the time leading up to The Force Awakens, and I was like, I was a stand-up comic, so I had no friends that were like interested in Disney or Star Wars. They just did not care. And so I started a podcast because I was like, all right, cool. Then like that way, it worked with me for Disney, because like a lot of my friends don't care about Disney parks and stuff. And so it worked for me for Disney. So like maybe it'll work for Star Wars. And like I can make like a little small community around people. We can just chat about Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. So I was working at a chicken plant factory called Purdue at the time, and I hated my life. It was just the worst time of my life. I hated it so much. And I would watch a lot of Collider Jedi Council at the time. And I would watch like Movie Talk and all the stuff that was on Collider. And so when I was thinking up a name for Jedi Talk, since I loved Collider Movie Talk and Jedi Council so much, I was like, well, I'm just going to name it as an homage to those shows, as like my own little inside joke to myself, and call it Jedi Talk. Plus, it's like a simple name where like, you know up front what you're getting when you see the name Jedi Talk as a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah, Star Trek, right?
Yeah, right. You get Star Trek.
Yeah, there you go.
The Vulcan Death Grip Radio. That's the new one we're doing. It starts next week.
I
Look out for
quit.
that.
I quit.
I've got lots of stories for you guys.
Ooh, so that is how the name of the show came to be, and it's just kind of stuck. So we had heard from you off air that you've got an interesting story to tell us about how the original Jedi Talk got its name. So please indulge us.
Yeah, actually. So, and it's got lots of twists and turns. So, yeah, your Jedi Talk name is actually was a pretty big point of contention for Lucasfilm when we first hit the air. So we hit the air in 1999, and we broadcast basically the spring before episode 1 came out, and then kind of all through the episode 1, 2, and 3 kind of era of Star Wars, which wasn't the easiest era of Star Wars to be part of it, but still, it was, part of it. Anyway, because I come from the original era, right? But basically we came up with the idea of doing a Star Wars talk show. And it was because at the time there was a lot of local radio, talk radio and stuff like that. And my father had been a big listener and actually participated in a lot of it. So I wound up having kind of an interest in radio. And then I said, well, I want a Star Wars talk show. And basically everybody said, well, it's just too much small of a market share. And so I went to the internet and said, well, okay, there's much bigger market share on the internet for Star Wars people, so I'll start a talk show here. And that was the concept. And then I went out looking for the technology. But the name we came up with, Jedi Talk, it's kind of the same premise. It was easy, it was like, hey, it was real simple of what we were. And back then, it wasn't, podcast wasn't a word. It wasn't even anything. So we had to explain every time, like, you go online and you listen to a Star Wars talk show, right? And it was a very difficult explanation to make, and we tried it in many different ways. But Jedi Talk was always a very simple name. And we even had an 800 number that people could call into the show. It was 1877 Jedi TLK.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Dark Sider Light, join us Sunday night. We had all sorts.
Oh my gosh.
It was campy 90s radio shit.
That's perfect.
Sorry, I don't know if I can.
Oh, you could say whatever the fuck you want on here.
There you go.
Okay, good. That's going to be good for everybody involved.
Yeah,
especially the guy that has to run that beeper, because that poor bastard when I'm around.
No, you're good. We fart into the mic. You're good. We're very mature around these parts.
Yes,
You're
the
good.
most serious show you'll ever get here.
We had a Star Wars show called Stormtrooper Bob, which was just basically every racial and horrific, hit
the button,
stereotypical thing that we could do on top of a Star Wars podcast. So basically, Stormtrooper Bob was just kind of like audio drama about a redneck stormtrooper that was running around on the Death Star and stuff like that with his buddies.
That's
great. Awesome.
That is great. You're in great company. That's right up our alley.
We broke so many rules back then. You would never be able to do what we did.
It was a different time back then, 90s and 2000s, man.
Yeah,
truly was. It truly was, right? I mean, like I kind of ushered in this whole internet age, and it's funny to see how much it's different and locked down compared to what we were able to pull off. I mean,
you kicked the tire
wild
that started
west
the
of
fire.
the internet back then.
Yeah, you started podcasting, dude. Like,
at least for Star Wars.
Yeah, like niche podcasting, especially. Like, like you said, people said it was a small market share to talk about Star Wars.
That's crazy.
Obviously, they were wrong, but like at the time, it was just like radio.
Especially now.
Just like,
Right.
It's like owning
if
Bitcoin.
You're talking about market share now, you immediately talk globally because everybody's on YouTube and has access to broadcast in the entire world. But back then, when you were talking about market share, you talked about local markets. And so I had friends in the radio industry and had kind of tried to convince my father to help me pitch an idea to a local radio station to do a Star Wars talk show on a local radio station.
Oh, that is so cool.
But the argument was always there's just not enough Star Wars fans to be able to support a talk show within the broadcast range of this tower.
That's wild.
And so that's where the internet came in. And people say, there was so many people working at the same time in audio and podcasting, and what came out of what we did. Yeah, you're right. I was part of the giant mix of people that created podcasting. but that I don't want to take any more credit than due, right? Like there's so many other people that were involved in how it became podcasting and stuff like that. And it has been something that people have put on me a couple times where they're like, oh, you invented podcasting because you were the first talk show on. And yeah, if you look back in the history, technically we kind of were, but at the same time, there was the French one that's still running. Those guys are still broadcast. Well, I don't. Last couple years ago, they were still broadcasting, but I don't. Oh, but you know, these guys were gone forever, and I met those guys back in the day. So you know, there's people who have been involved in it a long, long time. It wasn't certainly not me that like created Star Wars podcasting or podcasting in any manner. Okay. I was just one little link in the chain.
That's awesome, though. Like, definitely a pioneer, if not the creator.
Well, for us,
for sure.
For Jedi Talk Now, the 100%. Current Jedi Talk episode, just complete coincidence. I mean,
it's hilarious.
I joined late. Brad Hughes started it. Late 2015, 2016?
Yeah, I joined in 2019.
Yeah.
So
see, we were off the air for 10 years by then.
Wow, my lord,
dude!
Wow.
Disappeared into the mists of internet history by then. Yeah.
Do you guys have those old episodes still around?
I've sat and I've had a beer with Peter Mayhew. I've had a beer with Chewbacca. That's my favorite claim to fame. Is that when we were at Celebration 2, he came up to our table. And we sat down, and I sent off one of my hosts to run as fast as he could to get us 2 beers because I wanted to have a beer with Chewbacca.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
Absolutely.
That beats all my top 10 moments right there.
Like cool stuff back then. We were, and again, we were able to pull stuff off that was like outside the Lucasfilm archetype, outside of the Disney archetype. I'm sure you guys are well monitored and watched by Disney and everybody over there because they don't take any of their properties lightly. By being able to bounce between Del Rey and Wizards of the Coast and all the different affiliate companies of Lucasfilm, I was one of the biggest thorn in Lucasfilm's side for
the tradition continues. I love that.
They hated me.
Well, I can assure you that hate has continued on to us because we are currently battling the mouse to release an episode we did with one of the performers on the Galactic Star Cruiser or the Halcyon over there, because we're in Central Florida. We live right down the street, so we released it. Then they asked us to take it down 12 hours later.
We did that too. We got a C&D. That was our only C&D from Disney. So this I don't know if you guys were going to want to broadcast this show, but it's a lot of inside weird information, but we used to tout this thing. So there was a kid named Luke. Luke with 2 U's is what he went by. And when you called Jedi Talk, we'd say, Jedi Talk, you're on the air. And then we'd ask your name, and you'd come up with some stupid name because we wanted it to be that you were like calling into the Star Wars universe. That was always kind of the highbrow concept of the talk show, right? Like you were calling into the Star Wars cantina, and these hosts, these smart-ass hosts were basically giving you shit. And so we would ask the question, dark side or light? So you would immediately kind of affiliate yourself, right, as you came in. And then, whatever the question of the week was, we'd ask those people, and then they'd give their opinion and stuff like that. And some people get super, impassioned, and that's what made that show great. Jedi Talk was never much about the host. We were just a bunch of smartasses. But the people, that called in, all the crazy people from all over the world, just with all sorts of stuff. I mean, having that 800 number was just the funnest thing ever.
That's so good, though.
Did you ever get calls where people were like heavy breathing on the other side? They called on accident?
It was pretty easy to defeat. Yeah, I mean, we had people that would call in. I mean, obviously, in 99, if you were sitting there listening to your computer about Star Wars, you were pretty much throwing the geek feather right in your cap and saying, okay, this is who I am.
That's true.
Wasn't a whole lot of hiding it back then. So it was, but at the same time, we had people who would prank call the show, but the overwhelming Star Wars nature of the show would just prevail, and they would wind up kind of not calling in because they'd get embarrassed by doing it, or they'd wind up like halfway through the call turntailing and then starting to participate and wanting to be part of the show and give their opinion and shit like that.
Fun.
So like we win them over like somewhere around the 30-second mark. Yeah.
Nice.
Right as we were like asking them like, hey, yeah, if you're dark side or light. And if they were like, what do you mean? Well, like, are you dark side or light? And so
dark.
My big claim to fame was I never said.
Oh,
I was on 100 shows, and on my very last show, I admitted that I'm probably dark side.
Nice. There we go. I knew I liked it.
Good payoff.
Yes.
Like everybody didn't know that from the beginning.
That's hilarious. Do you have any of those old episodes still around?
Yeah, I have like the first 67 of them. And they're
67?
They're horrible sound quality old MP3s, but yeah, I still have them.
I would.
Man.
If you ever want to hear some really bad conversation about Star Wars, I'd be happy to.
Man, we all are chomping at the bit.
Don't worry,
now.
we can go listen to some of our earlier shows.
Yeah, if you want to hear bad stuff, listen to us.
You know what I will send you is I'll send you Stormtrooper Bob, which is the audio drama. Now that one is truly a glorious thing, because what happened is with that is. We again, Jedi Talk was the idea was that you would call into the cantina, you'd actually call into the Star Wars universe, and that's why we made you take on a Star Wars name, and why we made you kind of announce your affiliation is because you're playing a character on our talk show.
You're like the original Galactic Star Cruiser at that point.
Of course, that idea never really kind of fully took off. I kept trying to get it to go somehow, and so. In order to add some storytelling, we built this audio drama called Stormtrooper Bob. And originally my co-host started to write it, and he was writing it very kind of abstract, and it was trying. And I was like, no. I have an idea for this. So I started to loosely write it with my dyslexic skills, which were shitty. And so what I did is kind of just laid it out. So the Stormtrooper and his squad are responsible for everything that happens in the original movie trilogy. So, like, they blow up the first Death Star. It's not Luke. It's this Stormtrooper squad that messes up and blows up the original Death Star and the one in Return of the Jedi. And you follow them all the way through the movies in this little audio drama. And there was like 30 episodes of it. So that was one of the biggest... That was one of the biggest things that we ever did, because that was recognized by everybody. Even Lucasfilm said that was pretty funny.
That's great.
It was just too many people. But kind of circling back to the C&D from Disney, we got that because we did on a show, we had a guy that worked for Disney, and he came up with an idea of Star Wars at Disney, because this was not done then, right? Like, this did not exist. We had Star Tours.
Yeah.
And he was working very hard to work his way to be a ride attendant on Star Tours. And actually, I went down there and visited him and went on the Jungle Cruise when he was running the Jungle Cruise. So that shows you the hierarchy of the Star Tours at the time.
Right.
But anyway, so he was trying to get on Star Tours, but he had come up with Lucasland. And we came up and this kid made a beautiful map drawing of, like the Disney map that you get when you come in, except it was all with Lucasland, with a big Millennium Falcon roller coaster that shoots the pod of the Millennium Falcon. I mean, these ideas were like exactly what we see today at the MGM and the Lucas stuff. Everything that I've kind of seen coming out of Disney, it was like, I know who came up with it. It was a 17-year-old kid that used to work for you.
Oh my God!
The Jungle Ride and and he was one of the. I think he was Mickey or one of the characters or something. But anyway, he never really admitted to it, because they take like serious weird culty oaths when they work for Disney and shit.
We've heard about it.
Anyway,
we know him.
But yeah, he came up with Lucasland, and when we came out with that one. A paper in San Francisco wrote a story about it, and then holy god damn, that started a firestorm.
That's tremendous.
Lucasfilm, everybody's coming after us, because of course I'm sure Lucasfilm and Disney are already talking, right? At this point, we're talking probably 2003. They're talking. They're already coming up with plans and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, like, Lucas had said he wouldn't sell to anybody.
Internationally telling everybody about his cool idea for Star Wars Land. And how he hopes George Lucas is going to contact him and stuff like that.
Hilarious.
So it was pretty cool, but yeah, it started It started a hurricane. Holy crap. That was a big one.
So did it bring like more attention to your show too because it's like controversial?
Yeah, so that was my big mistake with Jedi Talk the first time around, right? Like because what I always hoped is that I would be the official talk show of Star Wars, okay? At the time you had an official website of Star Wars, you had the official soft drink of Star Wars was Pepsi. And so you have all these different, branches like, Del Rey was the publisher and Wizards of the Coast did role-playing and card games. There was a time where Decipher did card games and, like everything was farmed out. It wasn't all pulled into under one roof yet. Now, Lucasfilm did that after we were gone. But yeah, I'm getting kind of like all these different ideas about which way I should take the conversation because but now I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that.
You're good. That happens quite often to us on this show.
That's pretty normal for us. Par for the course.
Because we saw, the reason I asked you about the controversy is because we saw, and this happened to us recently, like 3 weeks ago, we had the conversation with the actor, the performer on the Galactic Star Cruiser. I put the episode up that night. And then, like, the next morning, he's texting me. It's like, gotta take it down right now. And got to the point where I had to go send in, like, an almost legal official request to Disney to use their intellectual property right now. So it's like, it's insane.
No, that's, and largely due to me, to be honest with you.
Thanks.
All right.
Because what happened is, you're welcome. Hey, man, I was just the wrong guy in the wrong time. But,
you are. Yeah.
But, in 99, like I say, when I came out with Jedi Talk, Lucasfilm, that was our first C&D from Lucasfilm. They came to us and said, you can't use the word Jedi. That's Star Wars. And I said, is it trademarked?
It's not.
And they went,
Yeah.
no. And then they went and trademarked every goddamn Star Wars name that they could do.
Yep, they learned. That's what Disney does now too.
Jedi Talk to this day. That's why Lucasfilm or Disney can't reach out to you and say Jedi Talk or Jedi is because they didn't get to Jedi before I used it. So
thank you.
Your name is kind of sheltering under my intellectual grandfathering copyright beforehand. Anyway, you know what I'm saying?
It's grandfathered in.
Jedi is now trademarked.
Do you think that
but
this is why
they're
after
honest? Jedi Talk because that was invented before trademark hit it.
Man, it could be connected. It really could be.
What legal precedents would say, I think.
That's crazy.
But yeah, the reason that all the names are trademarked is because they came to me and said, you can't use Jedi. And I said, is it trademarked? And they went, no. And then they left. And they trademarked Yoda and every damn thing they could after that. It was like a 6-month hailstorm of them trademarking everything. And like Star Wars FanWorks and all these big websites at the time, also like the Force.net and stuff like that, who weren't really under the Lucasfilm umbrella. Again, we were all separate entities at that point.
Yeah.
So we were all pulling for power, and so these guys are like, "What are you doing? They're taking away everything from us." And I was like, "Yeah, well,
you know what's funny?
Sorry, guys.
You know what's funny? Like, I think people think like back in the day, Lucasfilm was more like accepting of like fan stuff, but that
doesn't sound like it. Disney, do you see how far I went, Disney? I got the OG guy who protected our name to come after you, so bring it.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't want to get into a fight with me and Disney, but it's funny. Lucasfilm is, and here's the thing. Don't get me wrong. There were creative elements of Lucasfilm who reached out to us and in off the record type situations said, "Hey, we listened to the show and we're sorry about Force Commander and we learned a lot of things about what we did wrong and because we used to discuss video games in depth. We used to discuss, what was coming out. We didn't have anything back then, right? Like the movies were like being teased and everybody was like, oh, they're going to be great. And then, that we're fans. And then everybody that wasn't fans were like, no, they're going to be horrible. And unfortunately, they weren't what the original fans wanted out of those movies, right? And so it was a very difficult time to kind of host a Star Wars show, especially when I was trying to positive spin all the time. And I was trying to become Lucasfilm official. right? I was wanting to be the guy, and instead of, I should have just moved against it in the first place and said, sure, Coke, I'll take the sponsorship from you guys, because Coke did want to sponsor me, and the other chips company did want to sponsor me, but I said, oh no, Pepsi is the Star Wars official sponsor. Yeah, I wanted to go official, exactly.
Which is funny because now
move.
Coke is
Don't
with Disney.
That. If you see a path to glory, take it.
We're trying.
Well spoken. Well
We
spoken.
can't even release our own episodes.
Yeah.
Our best episode.
Well, I mean, that's it, and that's crazy that you have. But Disney has a pretty sharp clause on their employment clause. They can't talk about it very much, right? Like my buddy that was there he got into a lot of trouble for the times he was on air, and that was before anybody knew, like it was in the paper before any of his co-employees realized that he had been on a Star Wars talk show.
Now by the time he'd wake up, he'd have the yellow slip right on his front door.
Yeah. It didn't move very quick back then.
That's crazy.
Right? And there was always the same players in the game, right? So cease and desist were just kind of that was the Wild West of the internet. We were kind of establishing those boundaries, and they, like I say, they think they kind of feel like they established them now, but that's not really the case either, right? It's still kind of open, but they'll think what they want to think. I don't know.
Well, man, we didn't want to keep you too long, but I just want to say thank you for coming on, because like the whole reason that Star Wars Podcast Day is a thing is because of you guys. And I thought it was a really cool connection with us being Jedi Talk and you guys being the original Jedi Talk to have you on. And you have an open invitation. Anytime you want to come on, man, we'd love to have you on for like a full episode.
You've got our information.
Fantastic.
Call out. We're going to call out to you.
Stormtrooper Bob can come on the show too.
Please.
Feel free. Like I said, I don't know what's going to be good for your schedule and where you want to sprinkle in going into ancient history about Star Wars podcast.
We can make it work.
I would love to do a full
for me, it
episode.
just seems like it wouldn't be a very interesting topic. I do want to encourage people to check out my books. I'm an author as well.
Yes, please.
Plug books on Amazon, and then I also do video games. So I have 2 video games in Unreal 5 right now on Steam. One called Balls, which is a lot of fun, and one called Creative Continent. So
I'm going to check that out.
Heck yeah.
To do a little self-promo there.
Please do.
As you should.
But no, we'll get in contact with you. I would love to do like a comprehensive episode of like the history of Star Wars podcasting. I think that would be and I think somebody maybe who like lived through it doesn't quite see how important it is, but trust us as this version of Jedi Talk. It's important to me for sure. So I would love to have that.
I'd also love to dig your into your brain on like what parts of Star Wars you love, what parts you hate, like what you think of the sequel trilogy and all that stuff. Just like Brad was saying, a full-blown episode I think is in the near future for us. With
absolutely,
yeah. Like Star Wars podcast got me through like my 2 or 3 worst jobs ever. I would just listen to podcasts for the whole shift and be like, okay, I survived another shift because of Star Wars.
I told you not to go work at Chippendales.
So, well, they play that on the speakers while I'm dancing. So
makes sense.
It helps.
It
helps.
Just hear,
but that's just
from,
human connection in a lot of ways. It's when you're listening to those kind of podcasts and stuff like that, eventually music kind of loses that human connection, and you want to hear people talking about a topic. And I think like I say, for Jedi Talk, it's the same thing I say about the internet and all technology. It's like, listen, I wanted a talk show about Star Wars, and everybody said that's impossible. There's just no way to do it. And I went, well, there's this big internet thing, and everybody's doing stuff on there, so I'll just try it over there. And that's what I did, and I put it out there. And really, we as the creative people of the world now have the most amazing paintbrush in the world, and it just whatever you think you want to do with it, go out and do with it. You know what I mean? If you want to have a talk show, have a talk show. I've had TV shows now and published books and made video games and just done all sorts of crazy things, Man, so awesome. I mean, it's more about what you think, especially with the internet and the power of what that network is. It's just about what you think you want to go do, and then just go find a way to do it. There's usually 10 or 12 different ways to get it done. If you want to, just put things together instead of just having a prepackaged deal.
Well said, my friend.
It's fun to do the impossible.
Absolutely,
you did it.
Thank you for coming on, man. And like I said, we're going to hit you up and we're going to do a full episode because it definitely warrants it. This was one of my favorite moments. We're actually doing a top 10 of like look back of our favorite Star Wars moments, and this is going to be on my list.
Sneak in
now.
my top 10 now.
This was so much fun, dude. I really, really appreciate you coming on for real.
No problem. No problem. Like I say, I'll get you some Stormtrooper Bob. You guys are gonna laugh.
Oh, I can't wait.
I cannot wait.
That'll definitely be worth the price of admission right there.
I can't wait.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much again, my friend.
And for those interested in everything that Lucien made mention of, I'm going to post those links. He did send those to me, so thank you very much.
Perfect.
I'm going to post those for everybody to go to.
They're in the description of this episode, so look down. And
Amazon,
click on those
his YouTube, a couple of YouTubes for his game studio. So
perfect.
Yeah. Thanks, Lucien. You've been awesome, man. Thanks so much. We'll talk to
No
you
problem.
very,
You guys
very,
have a
very
great
soon.
day.
You too.
YouTube.
Hey, may the force be with you. It's on the shelf behind you to the left. Yeah, right.
Awesome.
I love it. Authentic. Later.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, so like for a soundbite, you should remember Jedi Talk, Dark Side or Light. Join us Sunday night.
Dark Side or Light.
Join us Sunday night. Okay, I love that.
I'll put that on the
sign-off.
soundboard.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be
Oh,
our
yes.
sign-off now, too. Love it, dude. Dude, this was great. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye. That was fucking awesome.
That was cool.
Dude, he's so cool.
Better than I
Dude.
thought.
Dude,
I didn't know he had like all that
Yeah.
that wealth
Dude,
of info and
I'm
like, things
so
he's done.
fucking glad this could be
know.
big.
Yeah, dude.
This could be big for the show.
I think